Anything else? Let's do it.
Nope. From fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada, this is Pod Therapy. Real people, real problems, and real therapists. You can submit your questions anonymously at podtherapy.net or email us at podtherapyguys@gmail.com. Are you visiting Vegas for the first time? Check out the Patreon section of today's show for all your gambling tips. Tip number 1, if you see Jim going into a poker room, go ahead and follow him.
Yeah.
And now, broadcasting from the Churn, that guy is Dr. Jim Jobin. I'm Nick Tangeman. It's time for some Pod Therapy.
Only thing I've ever won. I've lived in Vegas for 25 years. I've from time to time goofed off with gambling since turning 21 in this town. And the only thing I've ever won that actually puts me up, I'm probably not up over the course of the career. Everybody's down, like always.
The casinos are up.
The casinos are up. Yeah, that's fine.
They're doing fine.
Yeah, that's fine. That's where I put my state taxes, just give it to the casino. But the only thing I've ever won well was bingo. I've won bingo.
Really? I've never actually played bingo.
Oh, man, you haven't?
No, Laura wants to do it.
Oh, do it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a great time.
I've gone to bingo night one time. It was a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun. Yeah, no, it's great. Because you got to think, I'm sure from a gambling perspective, somebody can do the math on this and tell me why I'm an idiot. But, like, somebody in that room has to win. So if there's 100 people, your odds are 1 in 100.
Did you ever see the Jokers TV show, the Impractical Jokers?
Oh, yeah, I've heard
where
of it,
one, there's a challenge at the end. Whoever loses, they have to do something.
Yeah.
And the loser in this one had to go play bingo, but they had to yell bingo after every number.
Oh, no.
And
after the first number, they yell bingo?
It was so, I think they had to wait for a little bit.
Oh, no.
But then once he started, after every number, he had to yell bingo.
Rioted.
And you could just see him. He was just sweating.
Oh,
it was just so anxiety.
Oh,
so much
they
anxiety.
will murder you.
Oh, he got escorted out.
Yes, that is appropriate. And that was for his protection. Yeah, that was... That was to keep all these blue hairs from beating the shit out.
Oh, yeah. People take bingo seriously.
Oh, they do. And it's actually a really great time. Like, what I like about bingo here in Vegas, I think everybody knows we live in Las Vegas. But, yeah, you say it in the intro. Yeah, we're in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
So, like, you go to bingo, and it's nice because you'll drop, like, $20, and they'll give you a packet of bingo cards for different games. And then you usually get 2 free drinks. So, like, you go to sit down, cool. You get 2 free drinks for your and you cannot lose more than $20. And then you get a little dauber, and you get to sit there and paint this, like, square thingy and just play along. But it moves fast, and it's, really hard.
When I did it, it was all electronic.
Oh, you do the machines?
Yeah.
Yeah, to me, that just violates the purity of the sport, man. You got to daub. You got to earn it.
The purity of the sport.
That's how I won. I'm just saying.
What
I won with the good old ink and paper.
I just sat there drinking.
Yeah, the machine let you know when you won.
And the machine let me know that I was still not winning.
Yeah. Those things are so annoying because all of us purists are sitting there doing the daubers, and then, like, the machines will go, da-da-da-da, and it means, like, they're, like, 1 number away from hitting, and it's just, like, this soul-crushing feeling, and then all of a sudden little machines will go, da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da, and everybody's just, like, throwing their paper on the floor and, like, kicking the daubers around. But it's a fun time, man, because you can only lose that little bit. Yeah. I won bingo. I got, like, the diagonal or whatever, and so that was, like, $100. And so I went up and collected my money, and they just pay you out right there, and then you go back to your seat. And then the next game was on the same page, and it was a kite. So it was a diagonal with a 4-square box on one end. And so I was already there, and then, luck would have it, I got the other 2 and got the kite and called bingo again. And people were staring daggers through my soul, man. Just so much anger. Fuck this, I'm just like, sorry, everybody.
I just imagine you get out to your car in the middle of the night in a dark parking lot. No, and there's a whole group of senior
golden girls
with their walkers and canes surrounding you.
Ready to beat me to death. Oh, yeah. Oh,
so
yeah.
Scary.
Yeah, and then I got like $80 from that. So my bingo career, I'm up. I've probably played like one other time since then. So I'm probably down to like 160, but... That's how you win in Las Vegas, folks.
There you go.
But today I'll be gambling in some poker rooms, and I'll be losing.
Speaking of winning.
Winners.
It's the end of the quarter, which means it's our merch giveaway.
Merch Madness. Oh, wait, no, we can't do that anymore.
No,
it's
we
just
can't do that
merch
anymore.
giveaway.
Merch giveaway.
How do you qualify for the merch giveaway, Nick?
You have to be a Therodactyl or Theraproducer for the entire quarter.
Yep.
So we went back, we got all the names of everybody who has been a Therodactyl or a Theraproducer, so giving at the $10 or $20 level since April 1.
Okay, technicality, Ezekiel Lawrence should be in the drawing.
He is.
Okay, good.
Yes.
We've already screwed this guy. Like, I really don't want to do it again. Like, we got to get right.
I feel he's like the person that gets screwed over in everything that we do.
The designated guy.
If we draw his name, we'll call it out and then we'll put it back and then we'll draw another one just to keep it going.
I can't read the smudge on this one.
This one's
Ezekiel.
illegible.
Yeah, that could be anybody. Let's just throw it away. Poor Ezekiel. Oh, Zeke. You just long-suffering Zeke.
So we are going to be, this raffle is for the Pod Therapy shoes.
Ooh, the sneakies.
There's only one other pair in existence,
That's right.
and they belong to Robert Brownie Jr. Mint.
Last time's winner. So
Yes.
very exclusive thing to win.
And they're not available in the store.
And if
So
you
it's-
win, Nick contacts you and gets your size.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Yep.
No, I'm just going to send
You get whatever pair you get. I don't care if that's
size 14.
That's put them on.
Wear thick socks.
They
I
look
don't know
like
what to
clown
tell you.
shoes anyway. Yeah, I remember Rob was like, "These are my going out shoes."
Yeah. All right, so we're going to draw a name.
We were drawing last
Jacob,
time.
would you
Laura
like
drew.
the honors?
Okay, we got to
Sure.
have the accountability. I like this fisherman's hat you've got, aka '90s clubbing hat. And the winner is
Jacob the Audio Guy.
Holy shit! What are the odds?
All right, let me draw another name.
Do you really want shoes
It's
from
also
us?
Jacob the Audio Guy. I'll take
Checks
the
out.
cash equivalent. Brian Lehman.
Brian
Oh,
Lehman.
cool,
Okay.
man. Oh, he supported us for a long time.
Yeah.
Brian, you are a winner. You get shoes. Hooray! So Nick will be reaching out to you probably before you hear this episode to make you aware that you get shoes.
Yes. Yep, we'll do that right away.
Yeah. If you'd like to participate in the next drawing, jump in there. Be a Therodactyl or a Theraproducer, and you will be entered into the merch madness giveaway, whatever we're calling this.
Yeah,
thing.
so to be eligible, you have to be one of those two before July 1st.
Yep. And,
And if you're wondering, you
Yep.
can take the cash equivalent, which is $285.
you just take back all your Patreon
I don't-
money. Somebody did that on Diet Bet. Somebody joined the Diet Bet, and they were like, "Hey, everybody!" And everybody's like, "Oh, welcome!" Blah blah blah. And they're like, "Why'd you join?" And this person was like, "Well, I'm a Theraproducer, so I figured I'm actually gonna make money now as a Theraproducer. Like, gonna get all Jim's money."
Yeah, that's what
There you go.
that's what I did with. I think I mentioned this before with
Yeah.
my Navient student loan debt.
Oh yeah.
With the interest rate, their stock was going up at a higher rate than their interest rate.
Oh, you invested in the
So,
same company
yeah, so
that
instead
owned
of-
you.
Yeah, so instead of paying off my debt sooner, I took that extra money and then I invested in their stock.
Oh, that's funny.
So then I'm like,
I'm
like,
going up.
I'm actually making money off this deal.
student loans.
So
All right. Well, all of you who support our show at patreon.com/therapy, thank you so much. And just quick PSA, if you go to patreon.com/therapy, you get an extra hour almost of content every show. You also get the show a day earlier. It's released on Wednesdays at midnight Pacific time. And you usually get a bunch of other little perks. We've got interviews that we release sporadically. We've been consistent with doing it the last 6 months in a row in the beginning of the month. We do a quarterly movie night. We do a lot of random side projects and commentary. I've actually been developing an individual book club based on Carl Rogers' book, which I am not even announcing officially until it is all done. If I have all of the episodes recorded and every chapter spoken to, then I will release the series. So, because we have failed at book club way too many times. So, lots of fun things at patreon.com/therapy.
2
Over 2. You want to hear half a book club? Go to patreon.com/therapy and search in the archives. I'm sure it'll be educational until it's not. So anyway, we've got a great set of questions today. First one, I really like this one. I think it's something that a lot of people relate to. It is from Lord Stewart, and it's important that we get that right. It's from Lord Stewart. It is titled Wanting a Girlfriend and Imposter Syndrome While Having ADHD. Hey fam, I recently found your podcast and have enjoyed it. I am a 20-year-old university student. I've been in and out of therapy for over 2 years, if you don't count the little bit of therapy in 5th grade. Okay. I've been diagnosed with ADHD and generalized anxiety disorder. I'm using Adderall XR and Lexapro. Cool. I have a few questions, so it's a bit of a lengthy letter. Feel free, obviously, to respond as to whatever you want to in the letter. Although I'd prefer to have them all answered, I'm realistic about your time and respect that you have other questions to answer. And by the way, yes, I am legally a lord. So he owns land in Scotland, just like me. I, too, Stuart, am a lord. A lot of people know that already. So I have a certificate, Nick. Don't look at me like that. Do you have a certificate? No. That's why we call you Nick. Oh, shit. Ah, damn it. I went right into the... Damn it. Jacob's back to throwing chips at me again. Whatever. I've heard from many people that you shouldn't go looking for a girlfriend to get one or have a healthy relationship. Focus on yourself kind of thing. Only problem is that I often cannot stop wanting a girlfriend. This might be related to my ADHD diagnosis. It becomes a fixation. At times, it's the only thing that motivates me, which is obviously problematic. I'm starting with a new therapist next week, so I'll definitely bring that up with her, but I always like outside opinions. I don't know if I'm allowed to ask 2 questions in one submission, but I also have some trouble with imposter syndrome.
I mean, you're a lord.
You're a lord. Yeah, what are we going to do? I mean, I'm a lord, so I can say no, but Nick can't, so I guess we're stuck. But I'm also having some trouble with imposter syndrome and my ADHD diagnosis. I'm on the ADHD subreddit, and sometimes I feel like I'm just playing things up in my head. The psychiatrist that diagnosed me did so on the second visit, and I'm worried that that may have been hasty. I try to avoid being a hypochondriac. I really do exhibit symptoms, but I'm concerned because it's not all of them, maybe not even half of them. Also, when I'm on Adderall, I feel like I have different symptoms of ADHD, like more hyperactivity, and I talk faster / a lot more and forget small things more frequently. Perhaps I'm always this way on the medicine. I just notice it because I have the energy to. Anyway, sorry for the likely confusing letter, but I have a bunch of questions and no one to ask in a timely manner. I no longer see my psychiatrist, and my next therapy appointment isn't until next week. I always go in with the intention to ask, then promptly forget, and I don't find the time to ask. Lastly, I worry that I will never be able to do the things I want or have the friendships and relationships I want because of ADHD. I know I can try, but the odds for the life I realistically want seem very not super. I appreciate any advice you guys can share. As always, some explanation of what ADHD is. Thanks, fam. Lord Colin Stewart the First.
Oh, the first?
Yeah, first of his name. Long may he reign.
Okay, all right.
That's a good question. So 2 pieces of question that came out of that letter. The first one is obsessively fixating on the desire to have a girlfriend. And Stuart says, listen, in some ways that motivates me, which great, but it's kind of the only thing that motivates me. That's a huge possible liability. And then the second part of the letter is, I don't know if I have ADHD. I have some things that sound like ADHD, then some things that I notice on the medicine. What is this? And I feel like maybe I'm not going to live my best life because of ADHD. So we'll split those in half and we'll take on both of them.
Well, which one do you want to take on
Let's
first?
take on the girlfriend one. So the importance of having a mate, the importance of having a girlfriend, fixating on it, being obsessive with it, and something that Stuart says is like, I've been told that if you want to find a good relationship, don't try to find a relationship. Mm-hmm. Like, be good with yourself. What do you think about that?
I agree with it, but he's right in the sense that it is kind of it's a difficult expectation to have because we're biologically programmed for this, right? Literally everything that we do is to attract a mate.
Right, or the approval of others.
Yeah, I would live in a garbage can if it wasn't because
Do you think that's what Oscar's really been playing? Oscar's been playing the long game all these years.
No, Oscar's just not concerned about anybody but himself. That's the whole thing.
He's a grouch. Yeah.
But if you want to have a girlfriend, you want to have a relationship, you need a place to live.
Yeah,
you need to have that.
So Oscar's really just the most enlightened one of us all.
He is.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. Yeah.
Think enlightenment.
Diogenes. Yeah.
There's a definite biological component to this, which we can't just dismiss and erase. Literally everything that we do is about trying to attract a mate to, propagate the species.
Are
right?
we assuming this is a desire for sex or a desire for companionship?
That's the other
I get
thing
the
I was
feel
gonna
it's a
ask.
companionship thing. I mean, he didn't say I'm fixating on sex all the time. He said I want a girlfriend.
Yeah.
And he talks about how I fear that wanting a girlfriend so much will stop me from having a good and healthy relationship with a girlfriend.
Which definitely, yes. So I would think it's probably the companionship component. And I think he's right in that sense because here's what tends to happen is when you become very fixated on having that relationship, then when you finally get into that relationship, your fixation changes to maintaining it, keeping her happy, all of that. And then ultimately what happens is with that partner, it's almost like you're working too hard on it. It becomes overbearing for that partner if they're not on the same page.
Yes.
And it becomes, they start looking at it like, oh my God, I need some room. I need some space.
Right.
We need to take this a little bit slower.
Right.
So then they start to push back, which ultimately will trigger you because you see that, oh my God, I'm losing them. I need to try harder.
Yes.
And then it's just, it blows out of control.
Yeah,
right?
that's always been the interesting balance to that theory where people say like, hey, you're not ready to date somebody else until you're good by yourself. And I've always kind of struggled with that because I kind of think like, kind of what you said, like, nah, like I think that that's a weird paradox that like, oh, you're not ready for a relationship and so you no longer need relationships. Like, no, humans are built for relationships. I don't think that's wrong. I think if they find that there's this void and they desire to fill it and they want companionship or romance or whatever, that doesn't mean they're not ready for it. It doesn't mean that they have some kind of flaw. Like, that's silly. Like, come on, that's this weird catch-22. You know, the only person who gets the money is the person who doesn't need the money kind of thing. Like, obviously it's dumb. So, like, I've always chafed at that. I don't like that. But then I also agree kind of with what you said, which is if you want it too much, if you're too thirsty, dog, then you're going to chase. And if you're chasing, come on, that made sense, Jacob. That was very current. The kids out there get it. You know, all my Generation Z people are like, Jim's with it. Come on,
ultimately, I here it comes down to this. I think yes, that everything that you're saying, Stuart, Lord, sorry, is true. However, don't beat yourself up over that. There's nothing inherently wrong with you.
Yeah.
Right. There's nothing. It's just you know, it's something that's kind of outside your control at this point. You know, that you want to be in a relationship. Of course you do. Most people do.
Yeah.
You know, so it's not like you're doing something wrong by wanting to be in a relationship.
Yeah.
I think it more just kind of focuses on coping skills and where you're dealing with it, with the intensity of that desire.
Yeah.
Like if it's super intense, I have to have it. Maybe that becomes problematic as opposed to, yeah, I definitely want it. It's definitely something that's in my future. It's something that I'm working towards.
Right.
But I'm okay if I don't have it right now. I think that's kind of the main thing.
The balance. And I love that Stuart says he's in therapy. Here's why. You know, Lord Stu. We're both lords, so we can just address each other by first name. It's kind of a club thing. Shit, no, don't throw another one. Hold on. I just see him leaning. I'm like, fuck, this is it. I'm going to catch it in the dome again. So, you know, Stu.
Is that why your chair is higher?
Yeah. That's also why it's a throne.
Okay.
We lords. We have a lot of pomp and circumstance.
Go on.
So I like that he's in therapy. Here's why. Because what's probably going to happen is as you get out into the dating game and as you meet people, you may attach too quickly. You may be very inclined to ignore red flags. You may be so seeking that companionship and that approval from another human that you may not allow yourself to attach to people of quality that would have been really compatible because you're taking whatever's there very quickly. And I think a therapist can help you work through that and kind of parse out like, hey, are you blinding yourself to maybe things that need to be noticed here? Or like, how much of this is like a good compatible needs fulfilling connection and how much of this is just they're available and they're talking to you? And I think that that's really important, you know, and it's a hard thing. I don't want humans to have like this list of standards or whatever that like anybody who comes in beneath that is unacceptable to them. That's not healthy either. But I do like you to be cognizant and observant of it. And I think a person that's in therapy is much more likely to do that.
Yeah.
You know, because they are discussing it openly. The therapist has gotten to know them, sees this, understands the blind spot here, and can be a good guide and just coaching you through as you're finding good relationships. So I love that.
So I think it's safe to say we've nailed the first question.
Killed it. soaring over the rafters.
What was the second one?
ADHD. And so, yeah, Stuart's saying, I was diagnosed with ADHD in my second visit with a psychiatrist. They started me on the Adderall. There's some qualities of ADHD that I don't have. He said, I have half the symptoms. And then when I take the Adderall, I have new symptoms that seem to show up because of the Adderall. And then I'm like, is that always been there? And now I'm just kind of noticing it? Or was it it's only because of the medicine? And then there's a little bit of discouragement about the future and saying so dude, if I have ADHD, am I not going to live my best life because of this? It's a really tricky question. And I'll tell you this, it's not uncommon that a psychiatrist would diagnose in honestly the first visit. I mean, the fact that you went 2 times, if you mean psychiatrist, the person who dispenses medication, I'm actually a little bit surprised that you had 2 actual visits with a psychiatrist before a diagnosis of ADHD. To me, that probably means that they struggled in the beginning to differentiate different options, and a second visit gave them more data to tell them they felt comfortable starting on Adderall and seeing what difference it made. If you haven't been following up with your psychiatrist, and I think you said you haven't, I would strongly encourage it because they need to know the rest of that data. Mm-hmm. If you're saying things like, hey, listen, I noticed these extra symptoms, these positive symptoms. By positive, we don't mean good or bad. We just mean additional. Yeah. If you're noticing those things while on the medicine, that data is super valuable.
Yep.
And that psychiatrist might hear that and go, oh, because people with ADHD respond very specifically to specific medications like Ritalin and Adderall and things like that.
As opposed to people who don't have ADHD that take those medications, you get different results.
Very different results. And so that's the thing is ironically, Adderall and other medicines, for those who have ADHD, it's a calming medicine in a sense. I mean, calm might be too strong of a word, but a balancing medicine, their focus increases in length, they feel more stable, and they can sit with a thought for a while. Whereas those who do not have that kind of, syndrome, when they take that medicine, it's an upper. They're jazzed and euphoric and running around on it and you notice that difference
because they're amphetamines.
It's an amphetamine, yeah.
And the best way I've heard this explained, and it makes perfect sense. Is
I love this explanation. Yeah.
So if you think of your brain and the different parts of the brain, your brain is being a house, and the different parts of your brain. Think of you've got the parents and you've got the children. So it's crazy to think. It's not crazy. It's what's the word? Paradoxical in a way, to think okay, you're giving me Adderall and that's going to calm me down.
Right.
Whereas
too much going on. Why would you give me an amphetamine?
Any person an amphetamine, and that's going to speed them up, right?
Right.
But what happens is, imagine in this house, you've got parents and you've got children. Mm-hmm. The parents are asleep, so the children are running the house.
Right.
That's kind of what ADHD is.
Yes.
It's chaotic. It's very fast. Everything's driven out of emotion. Yeah. Yes. No focus. So when you give someone with ADHD an amphetamine, what it does is it wakes up the parents.
Right.
So the parents can wrangle the children.
The executive function is restored.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas if you give somebody who doesn't have ADHD, their parents are already awake.
Yeah. So now the kid, you just gave the parents and everybody an espresso.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now, so that's kind of the
Dad just
difference.
did a bump of Coke in the bathroom.
Right.
And now things are not exactly more manageable.
Right.
So that's a good point. But this kind of data, now again, when we do this kind of commentary, Stuart, we are not in any way speaking to your health or to your medicine regimen and what you should or shouldn't be on. This is a purely educational show. And when we hear that, I think our actual response is, hey, this data sounds interesting. I hope you're giving that back to your psychiatrist because they will know what to do with it. Mm-hmm. We are reading 2 squares of a letter and trying to surmise things. They can do a full evaluation and get real questions answered, and they know what to do with that. So if you're not following up with your psychiatrist, my first thing is to tell you, really would encourage you to do that, and get your therapist's opinion too. They're probably going to tell you the same thing. They usually route you back to the prescriber on that one. When it comes to only having half the symptoms of ADD or ADHD, and Stuart says, I'm on the subreddit and maybe I'm reading things into my diagnosis because I'm seeing other people. If you go back a bunch of episodes, you'll see us talk about TikTok diagnosis. I think the episode's titled that. And that was a very common thing. And one of the things is a lot of the symptoms for ADHD and ADD are humanly very relatable. Mm-hmm. They are really exaggerations of qualities and patterns that most humans will do anyway. And so that can be very tricky. And I'll tell you, and I did a whole rant on this during one episode, ADD and ADHD are probably the most over and under diagnosed things in the entire spectrum of the DSM-5. Like historically, we were diagnosing children with it all the time. Then we laid off of that and stopped diagnosing anybody with it for a while. And now it's really surging again. And now we have a bunch of adult diagnoses. And that's not to say that they're not accurate. It's just to say it is a fine-tooth thing. You really got to thread the needle on this one. But more than just landing the diagnosis and being perfect with it, it's really about finding solutions to the challenges you face.
Yeah, it's about functioning.
That's it.
Right?
That's all we really care about.
Yeah, and
it's not
I think,
a club. We're not
yeah.
like keeping you out or putting you in. Like we're not here to bounce people that don't qualify out. Like no, we just want you to feel well. Like that's it.
Yeah, and we talked about this in the last episode. Sometimes we put way too much emphasis on a diagnosis when really what the focus is are you okay?
Yeah.
Are you functioning?
That's
Are you able to do activities of daily living? Like,
Right.
Are you able to just go to work? Are you able to be happy? Are you able to manage relationships?
That's what we care about.
That's at the end of the day, that's the
Right.
focus.
When we have patients that will tell us, like if I ask a patient on the first session, like, so what are our goals for therapy? What would you feel would be a success for our work together? If they say, I want to manage my ADHD, I will not accept that answer. Not in an impolite way. I'll just say, great start. What about your ADHD do you want to manage better?
What does that mean?
What does that mean if I was watching a documentary about your life? And they'll say, oh, well, I do this, and I don't do this. Great. Let me drill into that.
That's why I always like to use kind of the miracle question from solution-focused
Solid.
brief therapy.
Very solid.
If you wake up and a miracle happens in the middle of the night, you wake up tomorrow and you don't have it.
Right.
How would you know?
How would you know?
What does your day look
What's
like?
different?
What are the things that are occurring that tells you something's different?
Exactly.
Because when they can describe that, then now you're describing a goal. This is what I want my life to look like.
Absolutely. So great question, Lord Stewart. And you know what? I think a lot of people relate to you on that. But lean in on the therapy thing, man. Glad to hear that you're sticking with it. And if you haven't followed up with your psychiatrist, you should do that because that's always a good choice. Great stuff. We are going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we are going to be discussing friendship and attachment theory. You're listening to Pod Therapy.
This week's Theraproducer sponsors are
Person 1.
Elio Dare,
Judy
Schneider, Mason Miller, Leon Kassab, and
Ezekiel Lawrence.
Yeah! Yay! Good guess. Way to go. All right, this week's trivia theme in honor of our Theraproducers is Jim and Jacob.
Oh!
All right, now,
a lady.
These are not questions specifically about you.
Okay.
They're questions that I think you should be able to answer.
Oh.
Okay. But I'm betting you can't.
All right.
Now, so the first question.
I love it already.
First question is for Jacob.
Okay.
All right. If Jacob gets it right, he gets a point.
Oh.
Okay. If he gets it
Spelling
wrong,
bee rules.
if he gets it wrong, you get a point.
Okay.
Jim.
Okay.
If you get the question right, you get 2 points.
Oh, damn.
Okay.
So
All
if
right.
he gets it wrong and then I get it right, it's like Family Feud.
Yes.
I get rewarded.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Here's
This
the
is
question.
Exciting.
Iowa.
This could be a whole show.
End zone to end zone.
Uh-huh.
In what direction is the football field situated on the campus of Northwestern State University in Louisiana?
Oh my God.
Is it A, north to south, B, east to west, C, northwest to southeast, or D, northeast to southwest?
Wow.
If you'd like to join the show and become a third producer, do so at patreon.com.
You think Jacob should know this?
Yes. Why do you think I should know this?
It's probably something.
Why do you
I
think
went to school there.
Exactly.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's why he should.
Okay, I assumed it was some kind of like important, meaningful thing.
No.
Where they chose a certain thing because it was meaningful.
I can tell you how it's aligned based on like other buildings on the campus.
Ooh.
That's
that might
not
help.
I
That's not
also
the
can't
question.
tell you what the alignment north, south, east, west of those buildings are either though.
Well,
I'm trying to like think out from that point on the campus to like the nearest highway.
yeah.
And I don't remember which direction that highway goes in.
Oh, if you knew the number and you knew like the
That's what I'm trying to think
decoding
of. Yeah,
system. We can
Like
figure
what-
this out.
Like what number is that highway?
Sherlock Holmes
like
this thing.
there's a highway there that number is I think that is east west. I think it's north south.
Okay, so your answer, you're going to go with A, north south.
Yeah. Other than like the southeast, northwest, like all that shit. I'm like it's I'm sure it's one of those.
Yeah. It's
Okay.
got to be some direction. Do I guess 2?
Yeah.
So I obviously guess something different
Yeah.
because I have no incentive to get the same answer
Correct.
as him.
Right.
So he says north-south.
I mean, you could guess the same thing, and then, well, no.
All right, so he says north-south?
Yeah.
Or was you saying east-west?
I said
No, he said
north-south.
north-south.
North-south. So I'll take east-west.
Okay.
I don't think it's east-west. I think it's going to be one of the northeast southwest.
Probably. How often is it really that?
It
One
is
of those.
north-south.
It is north-south.
Yes.
Ah.
I think the highway that runs through Natchitoches is Highway 49. Odd numbers
Maybe that's
are,
what that means, yeah.
wait.
One
No,
of them
odd numbers
means-
aren't that way. No, never
It's
mind. I don't know.
interesting. It's interesting that your mind works that way because I would have done it completely different. I would have been like, okay, if I went to the game late afternoon, where's the sun?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have that kind of memory.
I can do that with UNLV. I can do that with Sam Boyd
'cause
Stadium.
the sun is very memorable.
Yeah,
at
yeah,
UNLV.
yeah. When you're in Las Vegas, you're always aware
Right.
of where the sun is. I know where it is at dark time.
I also don't think I ever. I
It's
don't
over
think I ever went to
Beijing
a
right now.
football
It's
game.
coming back.
Oh, you didn't?
I don't think I went to a single football game.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
While I was
really?
in school there.
Okay.
Wow. But also, I like the way he answered that. He could have just taken a shot in the dark, and he actually had like a deductive process based on earned knowledge of that question. So it was a solid question. The way he answered that was solid. So he gets a point.
He gets a point.
I
All
get
right.
a point.
1 up. Good for you. Whatever.
And whoever wins this gets Jim's PhD.
Oh, we're doing this again. Friendship and attachment theory. I
We should
discovered.
have bet something before we
We
started.
should have.
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I'm going to lose enough money today. I don't want to bet anymore. I discovered your podcast after your most recent Reddit AMA, and I have to say I've loved binging it and learning different things. Even bringing the idea of progress, not perfection, to therapy groups I am in to help other people not be discouraged by the idea of not perfecting their coping techniques.
Oh, good.
Oh, thank you. We did make that up. So TM, we will take royalties every time you use that phrase, please.
Right.
Just become a Patreon. Anyways, let's get into my question, or rather the backstory before my question. I watched your episode on attachment theory, and it made a spark in me. I am someone who is definitely an anxious attachment type. Much like you said in common with your episode, I am friends with someone who is avoidant. I have struggled with trying to establish a connection that I feel is deep and real. My friend has voiced to me that he feels close to me and that I am one of the people, or I am one of the people he is more open with. I remember one time a few months ago, I told him, it feels like you have a barrier up. And he said, that's true, to which I responded, it makes me feel unwelcome. And he said, that's the point of the barrier.
It should.
I'm sorry that you feel that way, though. That interaction broke me. I did eventually tell him how it made me feel, and we addressed it, and have since mostly moved on. He always deflects whenever I try to inquire as to how he's feeling, and he will always deflect to a joke or another topic. I told him I worry for him as he suffers from anxiety and depression, though he won't go get any professional help with it. I often wonder if he even really cares about me. If I hold the same priority in his life that he holds in my life, as he doesn't always respond to texts I send him or will go an entire day without talking to me. Nonetheless, I want to be friends with this person, and we have definitely had positive moments together. More recently, that I was able to get him to agree to go on a hike, which we had a lot of fun. My questions are these. Is this a friendship that can last? And if it is, how do I make it last? If it matters or helps, by the way, I have been diagnosed with OCD. Thanks, guys. Anonymous.
Okay.
Really good question.
Yeah. You being diagnosed with OCD doesn't really factor in.
Not super relevant here. No, not super relevant.
Okay. Here's the way I would approach this situation. Not necessarily from a clinical standpoint, but just as a friend. If my friend is reacting this way, I always kind of look at it as he is teaching me about himself.
Yeah.
He's teaching me something.
Mhm.
We are always teaching people about who we are or any things about ourselves, whether we intend to be or not. So if I'm saying something or I'm asking questions, I'm encouraging him, trying to drive this way, and he is pulling back or he is kind of resistant or he's putting up that wall, he's teaching me something.
Right.
He's saying, I'm not comfortable with this.
Yes.
That's his way of doing it, right?
Yeah.
So the difficult part is to learn his language
Mhm.
instead of translating everything he's doing into my language.
Yes.
That becomes the real tough piece. So Yeah, you almost have to learn this other person's language of how they communicate so that you
Yes.
can kind of understand what they're doing with that. Because it can be easy. We can translate it into our language, and in our language, that means that they don't like us,
Yes.
which that's not true.
That's not what they were
Right,
saying.
exactly. So we have to learn to speak their language.
I love that. There's this. I love sci-fi. That's my favorite way to read books or whatever. I like sci-fi books. Get lost in these space adventures. There's a very famous one called Dune. It's Frank Herbert. It's one of the most famous sci-fi books ever. And in that book, this family goes to a new planet that's a desert. It's so water poor that literally nothing should be there. It's very, very difficult. And they have to wear special suits to keep their body moisture in whenever they're walking around, because if you lose that moisture, you'll die. There is no way to replenish it. It is that starved for moisture. And there's a point in the story where the character who's visiting the planet meets somebody who natively lives there. And during a conversation, you, the reader, are having a hard time kind of reading the vibe. Like, are they getting along? Is there an animosity thing? And at some point, the native of that planet spits in the face of the main character. And you, the reader, are like, oh no, so they're going to fight. Like, this is a bad thing.
No, that's like a...
Yeah, and then the main character says, I received the moisture from your body in the spirit in which it was intended. And he read it right, that this must be the highest compliment in this culture because they do not have water. And to give it away is not an insult. Like, that is a gift. And so, like, it just, obviously, it's a weird example for me to draw, but, like, you know, what you were saying, yeah, whatever.
Agree.
Anyway. My point is, I agree with Nick. So, like, I wanted to give that out there. I think it's a good story. But anyway, yeah, if you are an avoidant or anxious personality type, you do not speak avoidant personality type, like attachment style. And you are very prone to misperceiving their gestures, their silences, their evasiveness as somehow not liking you. Also, you can desire for them what you desire for yourself. There's this old thing in relationship theory where people say we tend to treat others the way we want to be treated, which is lovely, but that's not really the best thing. We want to treat others the way they want to be treated. But a lot of times in relationship, we do for our mate or our friend what we would love to be done in return. We think that's what you would like. And we come by that honestly because that's what I like. You know, I bought you a gift. I bought you tickets. I remembered your birthday. I did all these nice things for you because that means a lot to me when people do that for me. And then they don't do it back, or they don't seem to be into whatever we're offering, to a shoulder to cry on, probing on their emotions or whatever. And we take that as some kind of bad thing when in reality, that's not how they want to be treated. You know, they just don't speak that language. It's not the same to them. So I completely agree with Nick. And I think it takes a lot for us to kind of calibrate to that human and understand what is their truth, what works for them. Also, be cautious, writer. You know, there's this desire to sort of force intimacy sometimes. To be like, they seem depressed, they seem anxious. I want to probe, I want to be available, I want to ask them how they feel. The therapist in me hears that and thinks, oh, very good. Like, I'm glad that you're that kind of friend. They're lucky to have you. And that you push a little when there's resistance to give them, you know, this idea that, hey, I am a safe friend and I will care enough to ask twice. But I guess there's a boundary there too, writer, where we have to check in with ourselves and say, but maybe not 3 times. You know, and that's not me not caring. That's not there being a limit to my compassion. That's me being careful not to force intimacy on somebody who's authentically resisting it. That doesn't mean that they're wrong. And I think that there's this impression we have in society right now where if you do not voluntarily share your feelings, you're blocked, or somehow there's something wrong with you.
Right.
There's something deeper. Why can't you get deeper? Why don't you feel safe telling me things? And it's like, I definitely have some people that honestly, it's not just that they're not uncomfortable like something's wrong with them. That's just not how they're wired.
Yeah.
And if you force it, you're actually doing damage.
Yeah.
You know, whenever you force intimacy physically, we call that rape. Like, we have a word to describe this, and it's very distasteful. And to do that emotionally can cause damage. And so, you know, be available. Do that first, like, hey, I'm still here for you if you want to talk about it. But then also give the space. You know, don't be afraid to retract if they're not responding. And that doesn't mean anything's wrong.
Yeah.
It could just mean, honestly, for them, they're fine.
It's like in the book Dune.
Yeah. Everything also
Go
comes
on.
back to
I want to
Dune.
hear more about this, Jacob.
There's this part where
Go
they
on.
spit in each other's faces.
Spitting is involved.
Right.
And it's really a thing.
Okay.
Yeah. But, you
Good
know,
job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
That's why we got it.
That's what
Dune.
you want to know. Go back to Dune. It all comes back to Dune.
No, but I'm very comfortable talking about how I feel about something. I'm very comfortable talking about myself and whatever. But if you just ask me about myself,
Right.
I'm probably not going to be that forthcoming.
Yeah.
And if you keep on hounding me about it, I'm just going to be annoyed.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, you ask me one time, and however I answer you is probably what I mean.
Yeah.
Right.
It's probably going to be something along the lines of, like, yeah, it's fine, or whatever.
Right.
And if I don't expound on that, it's because I don't feel like expounding on it.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And sometimes
And that's
people
not
are...
and that's not a reflection on you.
No.
That's because I don't want to talk about it, or I don't
Yeah.
feel
And
a,
that
a
isn't
need to go
necessarily-
into it or whatever.
That isn't
Yeah,
necessarily bad.
exactly.
And sometimes you're doing therapy with another human just by being present with them, just
Right.
by playing video games or shooting some golf or letting them, complain about something in their job. Like, doesn't
Sitting
have
and
to go
reading
deeper.
Dune together.
Reading Dune, spitting in their face on
Yeah.
a desert planet. These are things that people like. And they might not think that they want that, but they want to be spit on. I think that's really helpful. That's the big takeaway. I will give you this little piece of advice. As a therapist, whenever I encounter a patient that is resistant, they're there, but they're not opening up about things. I don't press hard, right? Because we don't want to do that. We don't want to be invasive and we don't want to turn them off, and that's not healthy anyway. So what we usually do is we sort of linger in proximity. We talk about other things that are going on in their lives. And my goal is really just to create dialogue opportunity. Whether we're talking about sports or we're talking about their job or we're talking about how their week went, I'm just trying to open up dialogues so that we both are comfortable just chatting. Then rapport is established. And then occasionally, whenever they slightly open up and there's something that comes out emotionally, I will not jump on it, too fast to startle them away. I won't do that. And B, I'll usually compliment them for sharing. I'll usually say like, hey, you don't always tell me about how you felt, and today you kind of did, and just wanted you to know that was great. And I hope that in the future you always know it's a safe place to talk about that kind of stuff. Oh, thanks, Jim. And I go, anyway, go Knights. Like we just pivot away and we take it as deep as they're able to handle it, and then that's it. But your friend says, hey, listen, yeah, there is a barrier. There's a reason for that.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
acknowledge it.
the best thing you can do is create options.
Yes.
You create you can't make them choose it, but you can create options, that's available for them
Yeah.
if they choose to go down that road.
But
So
be careful not to misinterpret silence
Yeah.
as a message.
So, can this friendship last? Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely. I think you just got to learn to speak that language, be open to it, and then not force things.
Yep. They speak a different kind of thing.
Yeah.
So spit in their face. That's what we want you to do. From
Yep.
north to west. Very
Yep.
important. Has to do with where the sun is. We're going to
Right
take a quick break. And when we come back, we are talking about diagnosing obsessive and compulsive disorder. You're listening to Pod Therapy.
This week's Theraproducer sponsors are Elio Dare,
Ellie,
Judy Schneider,
Judy,
Mason Miller,
Mason,
Leon Kassab,
Leon.
and Ezekiel Lawrence. Our second question, this time it's for Jim.
Oh, shit.
What is Jim's social security number? Is it A? If I had that info, I
that would
absolutely
have been a good one.
Yeah.
Jacob just immediately finishes the sentence. Yeah, it's B, final answer. What?
Oh shit! No, that's his credit card.
Here we go. According to the State of Nevada Board of Examiners for Alcohol, Drug, and Gambling Counselors,
Lord.
when does Jim's clinical alcohol and drug counseling
shit.
license expire?
Oh, damn it.
Is it A, August 2021,
Ah.
B, September 2021,
Oh,
C,
God.
August 2022,
Oh.
D, September 2022, or E, it actually expired at the end of last month and he doesn't seem to have realized it yet.
No, I need to check.
If you'd like to join the Theraproducers and make the show possible, go to patreon.com/therapy.
Oh, no. I really have no clue.
I have my guess.
I don't know if I renewed it when I got my supervisor credential. I don't know if I even could. And I remember last time I renewed it, I remember going there and thinking, I'm going to take care of this now. But then it was like, you can't. You have to wait until you're 1 month away from expiring, and then you can take care of it. And I remember having to wait and set a reminder and then do it. But I have no clue when that happened. And then I'm asking myself, is it an annual renewal or is it a biannual renewal? I have no idea when the next one is. But you know what's funny? I do have a thing in my phone, a robot in the calendar that will alert me. I know that I always do that. I do that for both my
I feel
licenses.
strangely confident in my answer.
Yeah. I do that for both of my licenses, that whenever they're coming up on expiration, I have an alert that goes off that says, hey, stupid, don't forget, you need this many CEUs and this much money.
So are you going to rule out E, that it has already expired?
I feel like 30% more
because
confident to rule
here's
that one
the
out.
thing that makes it really complicated for you right now.
Yeah.
Is that
might
if
do.
I had recognized that your license has expired, this is exactly how I would tell you.
Yeah. That's what, at first, whenever you read that one, I'm like, oh, Nick would have told me. Then it's like, is he telling me? Like, this is kind of how it would have happened. He could have waited an extra week or two. Ain't gonna matter. Like, he would wait till the next recording to do it. Oh shit! All right. I think I'm gonna rule out E, because I think if it was E, you would have. This would have been the first question in today's trivia. I don't think you would have even been able to wait until the second half of the show. So I don't think it would have happened. So I'm getting rid of E. I have 2 options that are in 2022, and then 2 options that are in 21.
Yes.
And they're both August and September?
Yep.
Ah, fuck. I think it's September 22. I hope to God it's September 22, because I don't have the CEUs. So if it's coming up in a couple of months, I'm fucked. I really hope I have another year. I hope I have like 14 months where I have to deal with this shit. All right, I'm going with
Okay.
September 22. What do you got, Jacob?
A is August 21, right?
Yes.
Gets the immediate one.
I'm going August 21. I'm going A, because I think you just put E in there because you were like, wouldn't it be funny if I got to tell Jim like this? But he's not actually expired yet, but it's coming up.
So, okay, yeah. So if it's August, yeah, you got
I have 2
you'd have
months.
2 months to get 40 hours of CEUs
Yep, that's
for
where I'm at.
renewal.
Yeah, that's why I'm really hoping it's September 22, because I'm
So
boned.
Jim's going D, I'm going A.
Oh, what is it?
It is D.
Oh, thank Christ! Oh, thank you, Jesus. I would have been so fucked. I just handed you my license right now. Just take it. Just take it. I'm surrendering it. We're done. There's no way I'm getting 40 credits. Woo!
Do you know why I put August in?
I don't know. What is that, like an annual time or something?
No, because that's when your supervisor's license expires. Is in
No.
August.
This year?
No, 2022.
Oh, Jesus Christ. I need to set a bunch of reminders. Oh, God. That was a really good question.
I love this.
That was a really good
I love the
question.
stress that I just put you through.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
very much.
Oh, Jim is
Very much.
red
Oh,
and a
yeah.
little sweaty right
Oh,
now.
yeah, I'm wiping eyes. Like, this is bad. That was very scary. There's too many of these damn things to keep track of anymore.
My
Oh,
question wasn't nearly as stressful.
no. Yeah, by the way.
Surprisingly, it doesn't matter what direction that football field points. You're going to be okay.
Yeah,
I'm sure it matters to someone.
It does
Not
not,
to me.
It
Not
does
to
not
me.
impact your income.
Oh,
Nope.
my
At all.
God. All right. Thank goodness. I'm still employable for a little while. All right. Diagnosing OCD.
Fairness, you're as employable as you ever were.
Yeah, no more, no less. Hey guys, I found you from Reddit, and I've been working my way through your catalog in reverse chronological order. Oof, good luck, buddy.
They get worse.
Yeah, they in either direction. It doesn't matter which direction you go. It's always getting worse. It's fun. I recommend the podcast to everybody. Background, almost a decade ago, I was diagnosed with an anxiety disorder, and I went on an SSRI. I went to therapy, which helped me with some coping techniques, but the SSRIs were extremely helpful. I can now fall asleep in less than 2 hours and only have about 1 panic attack a year. Yay! At first, my plan was to only be on meds for a short while, but my life was so measurably improved that I decided to continue. I realized about a year after I started meds that I had stopped doing a lot of things that took up mental energy. Things like 1, counting incessantly inside my head. 2, mentally or physically organizing my food, ideally by color, in pairs to make sure I could chew evenly on both sides of my mouth. Can't have 1 beefy jaw muscle and 1 wimpy one. Beefy jaw muscle, now my favorite phrase. Number 3, making the numbers
It's a
when
great
I look.
band name.
Yeah, I know, that would be a sick band name. 3, making the numbers when I looked at a clock or date make sense by doing some kind of math. At one point, I set 3 different clocks in my room to different wrong times so that I could easily add or subtract to make the right time, which made sense. 4, sing before I went to sleep so I didn't get murdered in my sleep. 0 clue on that one. 5, always worried about something being left on or unlocked at home to the point that I have driven an extra 30 plus minutes to check on it. 6, I had to say the exact right prayer with monkey's paw potential ramifications before bed each night, or something horrible would happen to my family. And I'm not even religious, but apparently, in my mind, if there is a God, they are spiteful. And the list goes on and on. Seriously, so many examples. I still do some of these things occasionally when I'm very stressed out, like counting, or simply due to habit, like Skittles must be paired in an optimal color flavor combo. But the SSRIs really took probably 90% of it away. I never spoke to a therapist or psychiatrist about this because I didn't realize it wasn't normal, and because OCD is like the character Monk, right? And until I stopped, I didn't realize how much mental energy I was putting towards these things every day. Looking back, it seems exhausting. After it was mostly gone, it didn't even seem useful to discuss. Don't worry, despite my title, I don't exactly want you guys to diagnose me or anything. My questions are these. Is this normal for anxiety, or does it edge over to the obsessive and compulsive area or something else? And since it is mostly gone, should I be trying to address it in some way now? Preventing or a reoccurrence or something similar? Or spend time on something more productive? Thanks for the podcast. I just made it to the episode where Jim's colleague scolded him for not doing better about ensuring that mental health comes before jokes, so I'm looking backward, to the episodes that prompted her response. Thanks, Anonymous. Oh, wait, no, there's a PS. Tried to find a therapist back in January, February, and 3 different ones canceled. An appointment with me feels bad, man. I haven't gotten the will to try again. And PPS, I haven't bought Jim's book. I heard it was only for dads. Dunno, seems kind of niche. Hey, fuck you, writer. You're pretty
However,
funny.
you're correct.
Oh, I like this person.
Yeah, that was good.
That was good.
Very well written.
Very well written.
Okay, so where do you want to start with this? OCD.
Let's start with
first
SSRIs.
SSRIs. We should
Yeah.
explain that.
I feel like we can't gloss over that.
Right. So SSRIs are selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors.
Yeah.
The short version of this, essentially, serotonin is a neurotransmitter, much like dopamine, norepinephrine, all those different neurotransmitters. But essentially, what happens to influence how those neurotransmitters get from one neuron to the other, there's several different ways of manipulating that.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some chemicals that will force a higher production of serotonin. There's some that will block reuptake of serotonin. That's what SSRIs do. So they block the serotonin from going back into the receptor they just came from.
Mm-hmm.
So they stay in the synapse, and because they stay in the synapse, they activate the other neuron at a stronger level. They just continue to activate it, which actually is kind of the same way that cocaine works. Only for
these
dopamine.
don't get you excited though. So serotonin as a neurotransmitter is just a calming, soothing neurotransmitter. It brings a sense of calm. It can work against anxiety feelings. It can also work against depressive feelings. So it's a very, very common medicine to get prescribed. And SSRIs are one of the most, what we call in clinical speak, longitudinally tested medicines out there, which just means they've been around for decades and decades, and we've got lots and lots of data on how they affect people. They are very, very mild. They are so mild that they take 2 to 3 weeks of taking them every day before you even really have a therapeutic effect. And to simplify kind of what Nick was explaining in sort of clinical talk, think about it like you have a little bathroom sink in your brain. Lots of little dripper sinks that are just dripping these little chemicals. Those are neurotransmitters. What this medicine does is it doesn't really introduce a new chemical to your brain. It just sort of clogs the drain at the bottom of that sink, and that way the little dripper just keeps dripping, and over time it continues to saturate the brain with what it's dripping, which is your own stuff called serotonin, and that stuff calms you down. So it has a lot of cool clinical effects. It's used for anxiety, it's used for depression, and yes, if somebody does have OCD and the writer doesn't say they're diagnosed, usually an SSRI is also going to be prescribed to help with that too. So regardless of what the writer has, whether it's just anxiety or whether it's also an OCD pattern as well, the neat thing is that that medicine would have been prescribed. And so it appears that 90% of those pattern behaviors started to go away. So let's take a second to talk about what OCD actually is. And this is something you've heard us do on the show from time to time, new listeners maybe not. OCD gets used a lot in the wrong ways. People will say, oh, my grandma's so OCD. And you'll say, oh yeah? What does she do? She just has to have the house cleaned a certain way. She always sweeps every single day. If I do the dishes, she'll pull them back out and she'll wash them again because she doesn't think that I dry them well and there's water spots. She can't handle it. Man, she's really OCD. That's not what OCD is. OCD is obsessively having a thought and then compulsively behaving, because only by compulsively behaving can you make the thought go away. So an example might be from what the writer was talking about. Like, if I do not say this certain prayer a certain way, some bad, scary thing will happen. And so if I didn't do it right, I need to go back and I need to do it again, because only by doing that do I think I'll be okay. If you flick back a few episodes, we have an episode with Sapphire. That was our big episode that released the day of the Reddit AMA. Sapphire explained that she had a diagnosis of OCD, and she explained what that looked like, driving across town and then driving back to her house because she wasn't sure if she had left something unlocked, being afraid that she had hit a pedestrian while driving, even though there was no evidence of that. But because that thought was so powerful, she would literally have to change her behavior, her day, in order to go back and verify that it hadn't happened. And she would take pictures throughout her house of different things to make sure that they were off, because her mind would tell her that maybe they weren't and that she had no choice but to go check. So OCD is a tricky thing to diagnose because some of those patterns are mere superstition. Some of those patterns are just humans kind of being a little anxious or wanting to verify things or doubting themselves. And that's okay. That doesn't mean they have obsessive and compulsive disorder. So that D in OCD matters too. Obsessive are the thoughts that we think, usually fearful thoughts. The compulsive are behaviors that we do, usually to satisfy those fearful thoughts and make them go away. And then the disorder part shows up whenever that behavior is now causing, and this is a magic phrase that clinicians use all the time when we're thinking of a diagnosis, a clinically significant amount of distress. Is it causing some kind of disruption in this human's life or their safety or their health or their happiness or their ability to function? And when we see that to a certain extent, now we're saying, hey, this looks an awful lot like OCD.
So in your example, grandma cleaning up the house, it would be fair to say, perhaps, this is a question. It would be fair to say that grandma obsessively cleans the house.
Sure. Yep.
But it's not
very
OCD.
obsessive about it. Yeah. Grandma is very
She's just
fastidious.
It has to be done in a certain way.
Yep.
It has to be done at a certain time of
Very
day.
strict.
Before she goes to bed, it has to be clean, whatever. Like,
Yep.
you could say obsessive.
Obsessive, yeah, and that's
Great.
fine, yeah. But I think that it's just lazy for people to. That's like when they say the weather is schizophrenic outside or the stock market's bipolar, and we get cringy.
People
about that
say those
stuff.
things?
Idiots do, and it's just we're always out here trying to say, hey, don't weaponize mental health language. Just shut up. Like find other words. So in this case, though, writer, a lot of the stuff that you're describing, sure, I think a lot of people. Let's say it this way, because we're not going to diagnose. A lot of people with OCD would read your letter and go, yeah, I relate to a lot of that. I've done those things. A lot of that makes sense to me. I've done similar things. I have a lot of patients that would hear this letter and go, I've done a lot of those things too. Does that mean they need treatment? Not necessarily. You can have your quirky clock thing and then go to bed, or you could say your prayer and go to bed. How many religious people in the world say prayers every night because they're scared that something bad will happen if they don't? That's kind of the definition of what prayers are.
That's what religion is.
You've just described religion. Yeah, so obviously we're not going to classify it as a disorder. Like it's something a lot of people do, and they go on to live fine lives. So in this case, it's great that yours went away. But we should speak to this idea of can it come back? Because you have that fear. That is an anxious thought. And that's a thing a lot of anxiety people have, is this fear that, oh no, if I don't do something right, the panic attacks will come back. I need to somehow keep my pencil sharp. How do I do this? And the truth is, the medicine seems to be working for you. If you've done some therapy, it sounds like you're discouraged with that. And Nick will talk about that in a second about getting over that and finding new therapy. But, I don't want you to live in peril that somehow this stuff's going to fall back upon you like an anvil from the sky. No, you'll notice anxiety stuff creeping up. You'll use your countermeasures as you've been trained by your therapist. And, it sounds like this medicine does a lot for you. I think it was a smart decision to stay on it. And of course, we always defer to your prescriber. Check in with your prescriber regularly to see how they feel about you being on it and the dosage and things like that. But you're getting the intended therapeutic benefit of an SSRI. So it's a terrific thing to hear. Don't know if you have OCD, won't speak to that, but I'd say those sound like some obsessive thoughts and some compulsive behaviors. Doesn't sound like it caused a clinically significant amount of distress, and glad that you're not having them anymore if they bothered you.
Or there's more information that we don't have that the person who didn't render that diagnosis did have.
Yeah.
So we just have to take their word for it. But ultimately, I don't think it really matters. At the end of the day, what you're doing seems to be working.
Yes.
So if it works, let's just stick with it.
So
I don't think we need to go into a whole lot of investigation to
No.
figure out whether it's the right diagnosis or not.
yeah.
You have the result that you've been looking for.
Yeah, that's always
That's-
what we're more interested in
right.
than calling things names. But sure, for educational purposes, yep, those sound like obsessive thoughts. Those sound like compulsive behaviors. And it sounds like you found a great solution. But Nick, this PPS of, listen, guys, I've tried to find therapists. I've tried 3 times and they cancel on me. I'm discouraged. I don't know if I want to do that again. What do we say to that?
Keep going. I mean, if it's something you need to do, then you need to do it. The canceling part is really odd that
That is
3 of them
interesting.
have canceled.
Yeah, it's
Because,
strange.
I mean,
Is that maybe just not accepting new patients, or
but then
They would have
but then-
taken the appointment.
yeah, why would they have
Right.
taken the appointment to
No.
start with? It just seems really odd that would happen. I think this is an outlier more than it's common practice.
Boy,
I think
that's
this
super
is
strange, right? 3
yeah.
of them in a row?
yeah. I think you've just got some really bad luck just with that. I
Maybe this
don't
is,
think
the
that's a
same clinic or
normal
something?
thing. It could be, but I don't. I think that's more of an exception than the rule.
Boy, that's a
think
really
that's-
weird thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I would be surprised if 3 independent therapists all cancel. I mean, that could happen. Hey, stranger things have happened. I guess I would be a little less surprised if it was like, yeah, it's a particular clinic,
Yeah.
and they're just very disorganized. They're
Yeah.
out of
then,
order.
Yeah. Then you just go to a different clinic. if you
Yeah,
can
or
find one,
like I can only go at 5 p.m. That's the last
Yeah.
slot of that therapist's day, and for some reason I keep getting canceled because they're going home early. I could see something like
See,
that.
even that's really
Still
odd.
strange. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I mean, at least then it'd be somewhat like, wow. But
Yeah.
don't get discouraged, writer. Like, I mean, guess we always want you to keep getting these skills, and I'm glad the SSRI is working, but all evidence we've seen says medicine plus evidence-based therapy is the winning ticket, especially for long-term success.
Mhm.
Like, we tend to see that. So I'm glad the medicine's working. That's wonderful. Clearly, it's providing something your brain really needed. And boy, I'd really want you to be equipped with those skills.
Yeah.
Because anxiety happens. You're going to go through things in life, and I want to make sure you have the adaptive skills to get through.
Yep.
But keep leaning in there. Great letter. And if you're out there and you heard something in this letter that you thought, wait a minute, I might have OCD. Again, this is one of the dangers of people that deal with OCD is they sometimes obsessively worry about their illness, right? And they think, oh no, is it going to come back? Oh no, is it ever going to go away? Oh no, is this only going to get worse? And I don't want you to do that, right? And so a lot of times I'm trying to get them to not necessarily think about the illness too much because that's counterproductive.
Yeah.
And if you heard this today and you're like, oh no, at the end of the day, don't be afraid to talk to a helper. Don't be afraid to, do a little bit of triage with a psychiatrist just start with your primary doctor. Start there.
Yep.
They're qualified to triage this to helpers if that's what needs to happen. But, again, focus on that phrase, clinically significant amount of distress. The writer in this case said, I was mentally and physically exhausted by this stuff, but I didn't realize it at the time. I realize it now. Okay. If they would have talked to a therapist, that therapist would have been helpful with that, or the psychiatrist. So you can have that help too. So if you're out there and you resonate, don't be afraid to go looking for help.
Yep.
Great question. Let us know how it turns out. And as we are at the end of the show, just a reminder, we recorded this a little bit in the past. We are recording today on Sunday, June 6th. And so if you have become a new TheraPal at patreon.com/therapy or Therapod or Theradactyl or Theraproducer since the 6th, remember that you can go to twitter.com/PodTherapyGuys. And if you go there, we always acknowledge on our Twitter the same day that somebody becomes a Patreon at any level. We will always acknowledge you there. That's the go-to. And we do that by hand. We don't have some robot that does it for us. But when it comes to announcing it on the show, we do that when we record the next one. We always go backward, and we try to acknowledge every newbie. And remember, if you're a theropod, we will acknowledge you every month, the first episode of the month, and Therodactyls as well. And Theroproducers, of course, we acknowledge every show and dedicate our commercials to them. And remember that you are entered into a drawing. If you stick around with us for Therodactyl or Theroproducer levels, you are entered into a drawing for the quarter, where you can enjoy free merch. And today's winner, of course, was
Brian Lehman.
Brian Lehman.
Don't forget, you can get the cash value of that merch instead of the merch. The cash value is $786.
It keeps going up. That's inflation.
That's how this works. But we do want to thank our Theroproducers. We want to thank the Saccharin 16, the mysterious and shrouded Illuminati members of the fan club. The Theroproducers. Thank you, Smitty Scoop, Jake Schneider, Robert Brownie, Jr. Mint, Kayla Lansbury, Ellie O'Dare, Judy Schneider, Nathan's Hot Dog Scoop, King of Student Debt, Dr. Ben Don, Crazy Banana Scoop, Mason Miller, Scott Jameson, Carolyn Albert, Leon Kassab, Kevin Chamberlain, Malaya, Richard Macy, Ezekiel Lawrence, Polygon, and Cindy Ash.
If you'd like to hear this episode uncut and unedited,
And why wouldn't you?
and enjoy our spontaneous side projects, go to patreon.com/therapy, and thank you for supporting mental health.
That was all the time that we had for this week's session. We want to thank our landlords, Matt Mattingly's Ice Cream Social Podcast. And thanks to those of you who contributed to our show today. We really appreciate it. Remember, pod therapy isn't something you should keep all to yourself. Share this episode with someone who needs it by opening the episode's description in your podcast app and copying and pasting the link we provided into your social media. Don't forget, you can find us at facebook.com/podtherapy, on Twitter @PodTherapyGuys, on Instagram @PodTherapyGuys, and at patreon.com/therapy.
Do you want to submit a question to the show? Ask anonymously at podtherapy.net or email us at podtherapyguys@gmail.com. I'm Nick Tangeman.
I'm Jim Jobin.
Thanks, and we'll see you for your appointment next week.
Bing, 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 bing.
Jim's degree from Liberty University expires on.
You have to make monthly
Hey.
payments or you don't get to keep it.